Missing these. Okay. Ushers. Well, you can't have mine. My colors are mine. I know. Ushers. Let's see. There you go. Agency. It's good. Okay. Is anyone over on this side missing these? Okay, keep your hands raised, and let's see if we can get someone. Is there someone who's willing? It looks like the ushers are still involved. Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Keep your hands raised, and we've got someone passing out pipe cleaners. It is an interactive service today. This is a deeply theological experiment. Deeply, deeply theological. Everyone up here got 4? Everyone has 4. All right. All right. All right, we have a pretty packed day today, so what do you say? We ready? Am I up or you up? Me? Me. All right, as those pipe cleaners go around, I just want to say welcome to the Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. We are a welcoming community of seekers of all types. That means we're a non-creedal religion. You do not have to believe what Orla believes to belong here, although what she believes is what's best. So, try to find out what she believes. My name is Reverend Ian White Maher. If this is your first time here, might seem a little atypical what we're going to do today, but it's not actually that atypical. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we like to have fun. So if you have a good time, come and say hi to me after the service. I'd love to meet you. Yeah, hi now too. Children are always, always, always welcome in our services. And if your child is a little fussy and you feel like it would be best to have another place where they're allowed to fuss, we have a room right down the hallway in our nursery, and everything that is happening in here is piped in there so you don't miss anything. But remember, you are always welcome. The CAT team has offered a special thank you to everyone who brings in treats and like offerings for our coffee hour, and they are always helping us and guiding us in our movement towards zero waste. And so there is a thank you to those who are making an extra effort to not bring in plastic as we, sort of fill in our table for our welcome table. So just a reminder of what we're trying to do in our zero waste efforts. We're also, for the next 2 Sundays, people can vote on the new name and tagline for the Energy Task Force. You can vote online. You'll find that in the Windmill newsletter, or at coffee hour, there's a poster at the CAT table. That's our Climate Action Team table. If you don't know what the Energy Task Force is, it's also a great idea to go by the CAT table to find out what that is. We're in the process of selecting delegates for General Assembly, so that means people who go and represent Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. You don't actually have to go in person. It's all online. In fact, you can't go in person. It's all online this year. And so that would mean going to the business resolutions and really Article 2, which is talking about this shift that's happening about, what are the guiding principles for us that is happening this year. So if you would like to be a delegate, or if you would like to find out more about what it means to be a delegate, please come and talk to one of your board members. The board members who are here, can you raise your hands? Okay, please come and talk to one of these people about what it means to be a delegate for us. We are turning the sermons into a podcast and a course, but the course is coming. But the podcast is up. So if you would like, you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. And it's under the name The Great Work of Your Life. The Great Work of Your Life. So check out the sermons as part of this podcast course. Finally, and Orla, would you come forward? We're going to do this. We wanted to light a candle today before we move into our sermon and our service to memorialize Nex Benedict, who was the non-binary 16-year-old who was beaten to death in Oklahoma. We're at a space in our nation where where people are being murdered for being different. And it is communities like ours, I believe, that are going to help make a shift, not for us, but for the protection of people who have less protection than us, for people like Nex Benedict. And so we just wanted to bring Nex into the room with us this morning as we go on our journey together. With that, let us begin. Oh, one last thing. I made the change and I totally forgot I did this. We've moved the offertory up, so if the ushers would like to come forward and select the offertory, and we've done this so that once we really kind of get into the movement of worship, we are in worship and we're on that journey together. Now we always do a share the plate, so if the ushers would like to start, you can start right here in the front row. And the share the plate this month, final week of the month, is for No Child Goes Hungry, which is part of our partner program with Karen Rasmussen, who has created a program to make sure that children who are dependent on a lot of these free or low-cost school meals, get them when school is off, right? So you can start passing the basket. And so please be as generous as you can. If you would like, you can put money in the basket, or there's a little QR code in the order of service. Thank you so much for your generosity. Please join in our opening hymn. It is number 347 in the gray hymnal, 347, Gather the Spirits.
You may stand if you're willing and able.
Our chalice lighting this morning is entitled Love is the Center and Foundation by Reverend Sherry Woodward. Again, we reground ourselves here in our highest values.
Love is the center and foundation of this faith.
Hello? We're going to try this again. I'm just going to say that this morning's chalice lighting is entitled Love is the Center and Foundation by Reverend Sherry Woodward. Again, we reground ourselves here in our highest values.
Love is the center and foundation of this faith.
Love is the power that holds us together as a community.
As we enter into worship, then let us open our hearts to your power of liberating love.
Because love is not only something we receive, but something we practice in community.
Let fall away all that might distract us from the wholehearted practice of love. Okay.
There we go. We're talking about love. Let us be accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love.
As we continue to listen and learn to act and grow,
may each unfold in wholeness,
both deeply loving and truly loved.
Amen. You can be seated. We will get to the covenant in just a second, but today we have our new member joining ceremony happening. So would Nancy Alt please come forward and sign the book? All right. Marcus Bogart. Is that? Meredith Fortner. Jason Fortner. Margaret Meath. Stephanie Sanzone. Kathy Shepard. And James Trent. Oh, Dylan and June Fortner. Jude, you're gonna get to sign maybe in a couple years. Oh, I love saying your names. Dylan and Jude. You want to stand up here with them? You know, today is a good day. Today we're welcoming 9 members to the congregation. You might count 8, but I am also signing today. So 9 members. And to join a congregation as a new member is a sacred undertaking. Some of us have journeyed through dark valleys to get here. Some of us have sailed smooth seas. You guys can come closer. You don't have to stay so far. It's all right. They won't, I promise. Maybe some of them. Here, let me sign as well while we're right here. All right. It's official. Some of us never knew that we needed this community until we stumbled across it, and some of us have been searching for this place our whole lives. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, and whatever you bring with you today, we welcome it all, and we welcome you. I'm not surprised that at this moment in history, many people are looking into joining a church in times of great social upheaval and uncertainty, when we feel isolated and powerless, and so much is at stake. We yearn for a community where we can make meaning of it all, work together with others for our shared good. A Unitarian Universalist community does not require you to affirm any statement of belief, proving that you belong because you believe the right things. We are non-creedal. However, to become a member does require something of us. It requires a commitment to the welfare of the whole community. It requires us to relinquish consumption and embrace cultivation. It requires us to align ourselves with our covenant, a deeply countercultural agreement about how we will behave and interact and care for each other when we are together. Covenant is an ancient religious practice of promise-making, and it is the central sacred act of our faith. It seems like we just say it routinely at the beginning of everything, but and sometimes it can feel very rote, but it is really important. It is the single thing that binds us, our agreement to one another. In 1975, the Unitarian minister and theologian James Luther Adams named 5 guiding principles for a free faith and related them to a Bible story known to many of us from childhood. It's the story of a people as they face a mighty giant, and they send a boy named David to fight him. And the boy is too small to wear armor or carry a sword, so he carries stones, 5 smooth stones from a riverbed. Adams describes 5 small, smooth stones that we might carry as Unitarian Universalists to fight the forces of tyranny and oppression and to make the world a better place. The first stone represents continuous revelation. Religious liberalism depends on the principle that revelation is continuous. That just means God did not stop speaking, right? However you use that word, however you talk or experience whatever is greater than ourselves, it is happening in this moment. It is happening in this moment. Revelation is continuous. Our religious tradition is a living tradition because we are always learning new truths. The second stone represents mutuality. All relations between persons ought ideally to rest on mutual, free consent and not on coercion. We freely choose to enter into relationship with one another. We freely choose it. The third stone represents justice. Religious liberalism affirms the moral obligation to direct one's efforts towards the establishment of a just and loving community. It is this which makes the role of the prophet central and indispensable to liberalism. The fourth stone is agency. We deny the immaculate conception of virtue and affirm the necessity of social incarnation. That just means good things don't just happen, right? People make them happen. Now, we can be guided by something larger, but we need to have skin in the game. And finally, the fifth stone, hope. Liberalism holds that the resources, divine and human, that are available for the achievement of meaningful change justify an attitude of ultimate optimism. The roots of our living tradition have been developed over centuries, but new ideas and understandings are still being revealed. Some stones are smooth and polished, while others are newly found and rough. Today, we give you 5 smooth stones. We invite you to become part of this tradition. Through it, we will become whole, and through you, our tradition will become whole. Please hand out the bags. And Jim Burke, our membership chair, will offer some words and lead us in the reading of our covenant together with our new members.
What makes us Unitarian Universalists is the practice of covenant, the making of sacred promises that bind us together. Our promises are not eternally binding, like those our religious ancestors might have made. Rather, they must be remade again and again and returned to when there is conflict or confusion among us. Let us read together our congregational covenant, with our new members joining us in this covenant for the first time, and our current members recommitting themselves to it. Love is the teaching of this church. The quest of truth is its daily task, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in community, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. This is our covenant with each and with all.
Please join us. And now we will...
Please remain seated and join us in singing 1017, Building a New Way. We are building
invite you now to a period of contemplation, of meditation and prayer. So we sort of find ourselves once again in this room, connecting to our breath, perhaps feeling a little larger than we were just a moment ago. Growing as a community, leaning into our calling. Just breathe. Sliding into that sense of we, into that sense of community. On June 4th, 1975, Muhammad Ali delivered the commencement speech to the Harvard graduating class. And he began with, "I'm told it's a pretty big honor to come to a place like this, and I figured I had better come up with something to talk to these people that's got to be pretty heavy." And on that level, I understand what he's talking about. But he came with nothing prepared. He had no notes to work from. On that level, I'm pretty impressed, because I don't know how he did it. Because then he went on to talk for about 30 minutes, right from the heart, floating between admonitions to understand the power that these new Harvard graduates held, to the need of self-determination for black people, to the flash and the dazzle of the Ali shuffle that made him not only the greatest boxer, but also possibly the greatest entertainer of his generation. He flowed from the gravely serious to outrageously funny with ease, but always illustrating how important it was to understand yourself and your role in making this world better. Now, I knew of this commencement speech because some years ago, someone, I don't know, I can't remember who, but someone told me about the story of how he closed. A person in the audience shouted, "Give us a poem." And the room that had been filled with cheers and hollering and laughter fell silent. And the champ responded, "Me, we." A two-word rhyme, now often credited as the shortest poem in the English language, but one that seemed to sum up not only the liberating journey from selfish to visionary, but also offering up a solution for the angst of the era. Me, we. It was an interrogation of what it means to be a person in this age of rampant individualism, in the age of me, or sometimes even it feels like the age of me, 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 me. But the question, who am I, is then set against the word we as an invitation to explore our personal values and beliefs, but then calling us deeper into communion. Who is this we? Which is perhaps the deeper question. Muhammad Ali, a proud member of the Nation of Islam, a man who was raised in the racist environment of Louisville, Kentucky, even today, really. A man rejected for seeking self-determination for black people, who was convicted for refusing to fight in Vietnam, believing that America was engaging in racist endeavor of overseas colonialism, who was banned from boxing from the age of 25 to 29, some might argue his best years, who had seen himself transition in the eyes of white Americans from beloved to one of the most hated people in the nation, a man who never wavered from his convictions because he knew he was on the side of righteousness, which ultimately allowed him to weather the storm and return as a hero to so many. Here he was, now standing before a largely white audience at Harvard, a white audience with tremendous amount of potential and power, saying, me, we. Who am I? Who are we? How do we move from selfishness to altruism, from isolation to individualism, from isolation of individualism to the life-giving warmth of mutuality? How do we move from this racist nation of dogs and fire hoses to a movement for liberation? How do we move from the age of me to the age of we? Now we're going to explore this in 3 stages today, and it's an interactive service. So does everybody have 4 pipe cleaners? Is anyone missing 4 pipe cleaners? Okay, Randy, can some great person help. If anybody else is missing, there you go. Hold your hands up. Now, I want you to have 4, and I want you to create a story with these 4. Assign a value or a belief to each one of these pipe cleaners. It could be a moment of transition. It could be something that you really believe that answers the question, who am I? And then tie them together to create a visual representation of how these values and beliefs are guiding you as we move from the age of me to the age of we. And I'm only going to give you a short time to do this, because once you've done that, once you have assigned value and you said, oh, this is, I'm a great singer and I'm liberating people through my, whatever it is, right? You're going to create this thing, and then you are going to turn to your neighbor. If it's convenient that there's 3 of you, turn to a group of 3. And then you are going to shortly tell your neighbor about these values, what it is that is helping you move from the age of me to an age of we. Now, I want you to remember what these values are for each one. So if you need to write them down, because we're going to go into a little sermon back and forth, back and forth. So why don't I give you 1 minute to think about. I will give you 2 minutes. I will give you 2 minutes to think about, what are some 4 core values, beliefs, moments of transition that you think really talk about who you are as we move from the age of me to the age of we. Tie them together. When you do that, after 2 minutes, we will shift to you get to tell your story to your neighbor. All right, Rhea, could you play us a little bit of something jazzy, just to inspire these folks? All right, I'll ring the bell when it's time to start sharing. All right, I'm going to let Rhea keep playing. Oh, you can keep playing. You can keep playing. We're going to wear out her fingers today. We'll see if she's good at, this is her practice time. Now, why don't you turn to your neighbor and tell them what this means, what these values are as we move from the age of me to the age of we. Be economical, because we're going to keep on moving. So why don't we... Okay, that's the 30-second warning. Wrap it up if you haven't already. Oh, that's very good. Wait, did you put all of them together? You are too fast. We're getting there in a minute. But in a different way. You're going to find out in a different way. All right. I know we could probably do this forever, but I got to get you home at some point, right? So, as I mentioned, I knew about this speech, or more importantly, I knew about this poem, Me, We, this powerful two-word poem that seemed to speak to so much more, that seemed to capture the hope of a generation, because someone had told me about it. And they told me about it just as I told you. And I can't remember who this person was, but I've nurtured that story over the years. I love this poem. So I was a bit surprised to learn, when it came time to do the background research for the sermon, that there is another possible interpretation of what the champ actually said. I had already submitted the title and the sermon blurb to our great spreadsheet in the sky, which, creates the orders of service, which is why it is printed the way it is on the paper that you have in your hands. I was working off what had been given to me through the oral tradition. But I was now faced with the possibility that Ali didn't say me, we, but rather me, we. Right? Whee! The sound of unbridled joy and delight, of pure wonder, which wasn't consistent with the message that I wanted the poem to have. And in fact, it seemed almost contrary to the message I wanted it to have, the celebration of the me. Whee! It seemed kind of inconsistent with this deep interrogation into the self and our purpose to build a better world. And the blogs and the articles seem to agree. The vast majority of the people who have written about this poem, including some poetry analysis sites, interpret Ali as saying me, we, W-E. And the few that acknowledge the possibility of him saying we, most include this at the end, and often in a somewhat disparaging way. One commentator summed up this collective irritation of this interpretation by saying, me, we expresses this sense of community and appreciation of togetherness, while me, we expresses a freewheeling sense of ego. And so I was confused, so I decided to go to the source of all truth, YouTube, right? And see if I could watch the sermon for myself. And I wasn't able to find an unedited version, but I did find one that had extensive clips, including the poem. And it was beyond clear that the champ said, me, whee. So why had this other story appeared? Why had it been handed down to me the way that it had? Why were there so many blogs sharing this story, either consciously choosing to interpret the poem differently than it had been intended, or not doing the research and just passing along the story because it felt better, just kind of like I did? Given the number of voices promoting the W-E interpretation over the W-H-E-E interpretation, almost felt desperate. Why were so many people invested in interpreting the poem incorrectly? And I think, like so many things, I think it comes down to race. And I can't say for sure what the race is of all of the writers and bloggers commenting on the poem using the W-E interpretation, but the ones I could were white. and I suspect the others were also. Most cited a short clip of George Plimpton from the movie When We Were Kings, which is relevant because George Plimpton was the person who introduced the champ in 1975 at the commencement address. And when you listen to him tell the story, Plimpton does pronounce the poem with an H. Whee! But he tells it in such a way that the poem seemed to appear spontaneously as a response to the shout from the crowd for a poem, which is not what happened. Ali set up the poem, saying, "This poem explains how it feels to be as great as me." Me, whee! And if we take the poem out of context of the speech, it might still be interpreted as a sense of braggadocio or bombast. But the champ had just spent 30 minutes talking about being, in part, being able to represent oppressed people and the joy that it brought him. Here was a man who had been vilified for spending more than a decade speaking truth to power, to having people attempt to destroy his career and his good name, to living with constant death threats, to speaking up for his love of black people unabashedly, of being a living embodiment of black history in a nation that was actively denying the teaching of black history. And now, he was being lauded and applauded in the halls of one of the legacy institutions of white power by a generation of up-and-coming leaders who were so excited to hear him speak. How does it feel to dance like a butterfly not only in the boxing ring, but in the ring of popular opinion and do a rope-a-dope on white supremacy? How does it feel to be a global symbol of humanitarianism and liberation? How does it feel to be him? Whee! After watching the video, this seems like one of the most obvious interpretations of the poem. So why were there so many voices invested in interpreting it incorrectly? And again, I think it has to do with race. The me in those articles and blogs was always interpreted as isolated and disconnected, which is a very white thing. And it is a stand-in for the great sense of loss that we feel in our relationships, in our spiritual lives, in our understanding of community. The me is removal. It's a removal of the person from community. But I don't think the champ ever read himself this way. Quite the opposite. Yes, he was the greatest. But he was never separate. He was never isolated. He was always part of something larger. And I would even hazard to guess, this is incredibly arrogant of me, but I would hazard to guess that he knew he was the greatest, not based on himself, but because he knew he was not separate. When he was rejected by white America for taking a stance against Vietnam, he was never rejected by black people, even those who disagreed with his position. In 1967, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King went public with his anti-war stance, and when he did, he quoted the champ. Like Muhammad Ali puts it, "We are all, black, brown, and poor, victims of the same system of oppression." Muhammad Ali brought Dr. King along. How does it feel not just to be an athlete, but to be an icon because you have transcended your sport to become an inspiration and a voice for the people who supported you? Whee! This isn't the isolated me. This is the deeply embedded me, a me that was able to become because other people helped you, cared for you, supported you, sacrificed for you, and now you have the chance to give back. Whee! Okay, now hopefully you remember what each one of your pipe cleaners represented for you. Or maybe you have a little note to remind yourself. Because we're going to go another level down, or another level up, or in, well, who knows? It's fine if you don't agree with me, but it is my belief that someone helped you realize each of these values. Someone helped you realize each of these values. None of us are islands. None of us came up with these values on our own. Each of us is a product of our community. So take just a moment. Ria's going to play something contemplative this time. Just a moment to reflect on each of these pipe cleaners and see if you can remember one story for each of them. Right? Someone taught you this value. Someone passed along this wisdom. Someone helped you become who you are. And when you have a story for each pipe cleaner, where these values come from, turn back to your neighbor. Some of you can be quite chatty. So I want to wrap up in an hour and a quarter. So let's be economical with our stories, but, take the time you need. But make sure there's enough time for both of you to share. But let's not hop right in. Take a moment to think about the stories that brought you to the value that you created your sculpture out of. Who helped this me become a whee? All right, Ria, take them away. When you're ready, turn to your neighbor. We can share the rest of our stories. We can share the rest of our stories during coffee hour. Because I want to get us to the truly hard one, the deep dive. Right? Because as I was writing this sermon, it dawned on me that there was a third interpretation. There is a third. As I already said, the majority of the articles and blogs only interpreted the poem as me, we, W-E, and that few considered the possibility of we. But when it was done, it was always interpreted as a binary, right? Either it was we or it was we. And today, I now am open to the idea that the champ could have been operating on two levels, toying with the complexity of the sound of we, in a way that really gives us access to the sense of joy that comes when we belong to something greater than ourselves. You know, why is this interpretation not offered anywhere? Probably racism, right? If Robert Frost or Emily Dickinson had delivered this poem, there would have been deep analysis on the double meaning of the sound. I guarantee you. But Muhammad Ali was a boxer who, according to his own account, graduated high school with a D- average, claiming they only gave him the minus because he won the Olympics. And Muhammad Ali was dyslexic, struggled to read, right? No doubt, never receiving the help that he needed to succeed in that racist school system of Kentucky in the 40s and 50s. And I doubt that Ali would ever claim to write like Frost or Dickinson, but it doesn't really matter. Doesn't mean he wasn't capable of complex wordplay. In fact, we know that he was, which is why it is entirely possible that he was playing with the sound of we to deliver an even deeper message. It's not that the blogs were entirely wrong. They were wrong about the poem. He didn't say W-E. But they were right about the fact that we live in an age of me, that we live in an age of selfishness. We live in an age, increasingly so, of isolation. And I do want to be cautious because many white liberals speak of the black community as some panacea of all things that are good, and the white community of all things that are bad, like it's some magical space of liberation. And the black community has plenty of problems too. It's not always supportive. It's not always liberative. And we shouldn't idolize other communities, making them a fantasy of who they are, even if there are a great many things that white people can learn from black people and black community about liberation. And the we felt by the champ was possible. It was possible because it was a collective we, felt by the we, enjoyed by the community. His success was their success. Maybe even to the point where there might not have even been a his or theirs. When he said, I am the greatest, how possible is it that the I he was referencing was a collective I? I think it's very possible. The joy he felt was the joy of many because the sacrifices he made were done on the behalf of the many. Becoming the greatest does not mean you overcame obstacles or you had the most skill. Now, I don't know this for sure. I don't follow boxing that closely, but there are probably boxers who come from humbler origins and who won more titles. I honestly don't know. But that isn't what made Muhammad Ali the greatest. What made him the greatest, what made him the champ, was his willingness to give it all up for the possibility of improvement, for the possible benefit of his community. There was no guarantee when he said no to going to Vietnam at the age of 25. Do you know how stupid I was at 25? When he was 25, he gave it up. There was no guarantee that there would be a return to glory. He gave up money, he gave up fame, he gave up being loved, all for the chance that he could make the world better. But he didn't get to that place on his own. Someone showed him the meaning of love, and that love requires sacrifice with no guarantee of success. But he loved so much, he was able to make that sacrifice. This is what made him the champ. This is why we're still talking about him, and I don't know, maybe I know 3 other boxers, right? And they will fade, and he will not. So in our final exercise this morning, I want you to form little groups. I know. Here you go. Get together. And we are going to need to be cognizant about how much of each of us are talking, blah, blah. You understand that part. But I want you to talk about one part of this community where you see the impact of me, right? Because it's part of our culture. There is a culture of isolation and loneliness and selfishness, and it exists everywhere, including this church. And we can get caught up in it. I want my thing, and I don't want that thing, right? Where does that exist here? Special points to those who are willing to admit to a moment when you have acted selfishly here. It's very easy to say, oh, that's Sue Lamb. She is a selfish so-and-so. Always pushing her agenda, right? They want this church to be their way, right? Super easy to do that. Let's leave people's names out of it, right? But it is harder to admit than when we do it, but probably all of us have, right? So if in your group, if there are people who are willing, let them go first because they get extra points. And if there isn't anybody, that's okay. Let's just talk about where that selfishness does appear here. But I don't want you to stay there because I want you to add what you are going to bring. You are going to disconnect one of the values from your little creation because sacrifice is required. And you are going to shape it, and you are going to pass it to somebody else in your little group, and they are going to attach theirs. And you are going to talk about why this value is important and how you believe it is going to help us become a we. And not just a we, but a we as a we. Right? And don't sting anybody right now. So please turn to your neighbors. Let the person who's willing to be courageous go first, and then share as you might. Share one thing that brings up selfishness and one thing that brings community. Now this is the kind of conversation I think we can continue. This is the kind of conversation I think we can continue in the coffee hour. And I'd love for you to continue that conversation of how we move from the selfishness we see to the greater sense of we. And the fault, oh my God, people are like, no way. We're off. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. They are. They're like, this is how we're going to make it more wee. All right, anyone who can hear me, say wee with me. Wee! All right, I love it. Now, I sent the hymns in the wrong order. I did, I know. I can't do everything perfectly. Crazy. You thought I did until now. So I actually wanted to close with the hymn that we just sang as the meditative one, because I think that's really important. So we're going to sing it again. We're going to sing it again. But this time when we sing it, we're actually going to sing the first verse again as the last verse. So feel free to stand as you are willing and able to sing number 1017, 10:17, building a new way. And remember, we're going to do the first verse also as the last verse.
Okay.
And you can rock it out, bring all that energy.
We are building
A new way.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Jealousy. We are working to be free. We stand free. Our praise our We can free our every need. We can free our every need. Starting love that is the seed. We can free our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without peace, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. Let's try this acapella. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.
Please join me in the extinguishing of our chalice. You can find it in the order of service if you're new. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Source of life, God, my darling, inspire us to know who we are and whose we are, where we come from, as we walk into building this world of we as an expression of we. Awaken us to that deep interwovenness, that deep interpenetration of all of life, beyond any separation of race, of nation, name, and form, where we are just united in presence. And fill us with grace so that we might leave behind the limiting interpretations of our world and go forward, sharing the great message of we. The service has ended. We've got some coffee and some great treats outside. I want to thank Burren Wood and Orla Wood for helping, Linda Davidson for helping at the very beginning, Eric and Georgia Porchot. We got Tom, Ruby, Raleigh, Romaine, of course, Rhea and Mark, and the choir. The ushers in the back, thank you all so much. Let's go have some fun.